Hello and welcome, my friends. This is your host, Mario Lanzarotti, the Zenpreneur. Today, I have a special guest, Mr. Brian Donovan. He is a master of helping business owners create the systems, processes, and automations that help them scale their businesses with ease to multi 6 and 7 figure levels. He's the founder of TeamOs.ai, which is an all-in-one software superhero that simplifies scheduling, eliminates no-shows, and speed up funnel building with their easy-to-use platform. Brian is also the founder of TeamHQ.io, which provides business owners from all over the world with highly trained virtual assistant solutions. The company has solved well over 30,000 tasks for its clients and generated over $10 million in revenue. And today, I'm excited to welcome him to the show. Brian.
Mario, what's going on? Grateful to be here. Thank you for that spectacular introduction, my friend.
Grateful to have you on. Brian, tell us, where in the world are you speaking from?
I am in the in Tulum here, and I'm very grateful to be here. Just a beautiful paradise of beaches and jungle where you're able just to tap in and get into those flow states. So down here in Tulum, Mexico, been living here on and off the last couple of years.
You're living the life, the dream life that many entrepreneurs wish they could, and here you are doing that. And I'm assuming, or I'm hearing, that's not where the journey started for you. So tell us a little bit about how entrepreneurship and this freedom lifestyle came into your sense of being.
Yeah, so for me, when I first got started, I would say my full story would start when I was 12 when I would say that grew up like, you know, regular middle class, East Coast, New Jersey actually is where I was born. And then, I was around my dad a lot, who was an entrepreneur, and he was pretty successful in what he was doing. And then actually, when I was 12, I saw bankruptcy papers on his office desk in my house. And I was 12 and I
Hmm.
didn't know how to process that. And so I was like, oh man, like what's about to happen? And so I ended up going to work at a young age, washing dishes, washing golf carts at golf courses, snow mountains, like 3 jobs at 12, 13, 14 years old. And I think that's where just the part of me that I would say like is that X factor started to develop. That hunger for, taking care of my family started to develop. Like I never wanted to see my dad, sad because he went into that state of, I don't know, if it was just instability where, everything starts to pile up on you and you start to feel overwhelmed and it's anxious or it's depression or and you don't know what to do to get unstuck. And so I took it upon myself. I just took full ownership of how do I develop myself to have the mindset and the perseverance in order to go and make sure that, as I grow older, my family can, depend on me. I could be the breadwinner. So at 15, started reading books, started doing network marketing, started to see some success there, and then hundreds of books, over my late teenage years. And after dropping out of college, I started an agency with a bunch of other college dropouts and started to get my, started to develop my skills because like I always had this vision of of living wherever I wanted in the world, having total freedom, location independence, financial independence, time independence, time freedom, and I knew that there was a set of skills that I could develop. And so I wrote down my why of loving and leading young entrepreneurs to inner and outer freedom at 15 after reading the book 6 Months to Six Figures by Peter Voogd. 5 years later, Peter Voogd is in my passenger seat at one of my first companies, and I'm telling him this story of how I was inspired by him and what he was doing, and I was dead set on building the skill set, right? That I can just continue to stack skills. And so I was fortunate enough to put myself around the right mentors at a very, very early start. And that played a big role in my growth and my development. I mean, between listening to podcasts like this and reading books and being in the right rooms, I did become the average of the 5 people that you do hang around with.
Mm,
That is absolute fact. And so I
mm,
became obsessed with personal development, like you, Mario. Like we have a very similar shared silver lining and thread in our journey of, as we've grown and developed. And so I was like, you know what? Between the combination of reading hundreds of books, traveling around the world, and working with different modalities in order to release these beliefs and fears and patterns that were holding me back from becoming that best version of myself, I found myself um, easily attracting more clients, more abundance, better business partners, better opportunities, and I found myself really doing what I absolutely love and that I'm most interested in doing every day. So yeah, that's been my journey so far, and it's
mm.
still going, and I'm still very grateful for it all. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that's a beautiful journey, and you said we have a lot of things in common, and I agree. When I was young, I saw my mother go through a lot emotionally and working 3 jobs and having a difficult relationship with my dad. They divorced, and there was a lot of pain that I've experienced, and there was this sense of like I want to become the man that avoids this from happening in the future. And this is a topic that I deeply explore with clients of mine and within myself, saying, what is it that creates drive within yourself? And
mm,
what I'm curious to know a bit more about is, I'm just imagining there's this young Brian, I believe you were 12 years old, who just goes about his day and then sees this document on the desk that says bankruptcy. And then what goes through a young person's mind? What went through your mind at that moment? And what did you make that mean about yourself at that point?
yeah, wow, Phew, gives me chills because it's taken a lot of work to overcome what I actually ended up feeling.
Yeah.
I don't know like the exact thoughts, but the thing that I've discovered later on now in my mid 20s here has been that I made it out to be that I'm not important and that I don't
Mm,
matter was the dark side of it or the shadow side of it. That I'm not important because my parents couldn't give me any money. There was no
yeah.
money. Like I had to pay for everything since I was 12. And so I made it out to seem that they don't care. I don't matter. I'm not important. And now so what have I done? Oh, I've went out and tried to prove to the world my importance, my significance,
Mm,
that I do matter, right? So it's between my two biggest patterns that I've discovered, and it's been a ton of work in even just the last 6 months, has been
yeah.
not feeling important enough, and not feeling safe,
Oh
not
man.
feeling safe. Oh my God, my nervous system has been jacked for fucking
Yeah.
over a decade, man, of fight or flight mode. Always, like even in conversations like this with other men, I was such a competitive kid growing up. Like I never
Yeah.
lost. I never lost a single game. Like I went 5 years, Mario, where I was 50-0. Never lost a single sports game ever
Mm,
in 5 years because I wanted to prove importance, wanted to be very competitive, and that works to a degree, but it really has. It's almost led to burnout. It's almost led to sabotaging relationships. It's almost led to some significant hiccups in my life, and
yeah.
so those are the two biggest things that I'm overcoming still
Yeah. Yeah.
and being conscious of.
Yeah. Thank you. And I want to acknowledge you for being vulnerable, for being real, because this is difficult. This is tough. I'm totally
Yeah.
there with you. Like I've done well over a decade of inner work, and still to this point, the other day, my wedding is coming up, and the other day I was sitting outside with my parents, and it got so emotional that all of a sudden I had this outburst of tears, and it was just bawling, and I was saying, you don't care about me enough. You don't, my sister is always more important than me, and that's sort of my own pattern
Mm,
there. And at the same time, there's a voice in my mind that was saying, why are you crying so much? You're not supposed to be crying. You've done all this work. You're a man. Blah, blah, blah. And I said, it's okay. And I just allowed myself to release all of that. And it went on for half an hour. And my
mm-hmm.
wife to be was sitting next to me. And we've done a lot of work together. And she looked at me and she said, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of
Wow.
you for going there. And I want this to be a conversation for, especially for men, to see that it
Mm,
doesn't matter how successful you are. It doesn't matter how much work you do or what your life looks like on the surface. These are things, that patterns that are with you sometimes for the rest of your life. And it's not so much in like trying to just get rid of that forever, but really navigating and transcending that and
yeah.
using it to come to a greater capacity of acceptance, of love, and of humanity. You know, you're a very successful entrepreneur on paper, and yet you're a human being. And I
Yeah.
bet, and I would love to hear your perspective on this, not many people see that. Not many people look at you as Brian the human, but they look at
Yeah.
you as the helper, the provider, the
The
man with the
savior,
answer.
the savior, the superhero, and all and those things. And you make a really good point, and I truly believe that your convictions about yourself, about other people, and about life are the keys to the castle, right? Those are the
Mm,
keys to the castle. And so I was what I was on a mission on, still on a mission on, and it still comes up is what are my convictions about myself? Like what do I put after I am, right? I am what? I am. That's where I started when I was 18 or 19 because I once I discovered the power of those two words of I am, like I was like, wow, okay, that's what I'm convicted about. That's what I believe about myself. And then I did the same thing with people. People are, right? Are people out to get me? People are manipulative. People
mm,
are vengeful. And then life is hard, life is impossible, right? And that helps us. That's our worldview. That was my self image. That's my worldview. That's how my reality shaped itself. And so I've just tirelessly ruminated about how do I drop the baggage, right, from my past? How do I put down the heavy backpack full of rocks so I can become lighter? How do I transmute the lower vibrational, parts of myself so that I can actually step into I am a free man. I am sovereign. I am someone that, generates millions of dollars. People are abundant. People are peaceful. People are safe. Life is beautiful. Life is simple. Life is easy. And this is what I'm now just constantly reaffirming and becoming like a self validating machine in order for this little monkey mind to get out of the way because this little thing does it's great and all. Thank you, brain, but the subconscious
mhm.
mind is where it's at. And so I need to go into that place because it's that much more powerful. And so
Yeah,
every day I'm just trying to get rid of this so that my intuition can come through. And the
yeah,
only way to hear my intuition is if I can get closer, you know, to the real truth of what it's trying to say. And there's a lot of, you know, devils in the silence and in the details inside of yourself, the demons that you got to just kind of accept and love on and not let take you down so that you
yeah,
can get to that true core of yourself. And that's
mm,
that's the voice. That's what we want to be
yeah,
following.
yeah,
That's what we want to live from. That's where
yeah,
it becomes life. You live a life on fire. You're like,
yeah,
whoa,
yeah,
so
yeah.
that's where
It's
it
a
begins.
beautiful answer. And you speak into something that is very, very important to understand, and that is the concept of identity, right? I am,
Hmm.
and how identity shapes who you are and what's possible in the world for you. And a lot of
Yeah,
what I see entrepreneurs are doing when they are looking to scale their businesses, all they're doing is trying to change the results by changing their doing. And what it creates, what I see, is short term bursts. They might be going into 2, 3 months of crazy revenue, but then bam, it comes crashing down again because the identity that they need to sustain wealth creation and abundance moving forward isn't up to date. It's still the old
absolutely.
one. And I want to know from you what, because you've done a lot of inner work all over the world, what have been some of the most powerful experiences that you've had for inner work that have transformed your entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, I would say It's a great question and great description. Identity, right? Process, then outcome, right? James Clear talks about it all the time in his book Atomic Habits. I learned it from Maxwell Maltz and psychocybernetics, right? That's where I really learned the power of self-image and identity transmutation. And so that book, Psycho-Cybernetics and Letting Go. I read Letting Go in one day. It's like a 310-page book by Dr. David Hawkins. I read it in one day when I was like 18 or 19. I watched my body vibrationally change because I never knew what the
Wow.
pathway of surrender was. I had no idea what surrendering is. It was so, I
Mm.
didn't know what consciousness meant. I didn't even know what the present moment was, right? Until I read The Power of Now. And then once I read The Power of Now, now I'm like half a hippie monk and I'm like in New Jersey. I'm like taking backpacks of books with peanut butter jelly sandwiches up to the mountains every day to read the book, to read these books. And
I
I'm
love
like,
it.
what is this present moment thing? I'm the observer of what is
Yeah.
awareness. Now I'm fascinated. And so
Mm.
I went down into the depths of like spirituality, consciousness, becoming present. And I think Eckhart Tolle, Dr. David Hawkins, Joe Dispenza, Maxwell Maltz, Rick Rubin, like these guys are all fantastic leaders and fantastic writers. And they are like James Allen, like As of Man Thinketh. Those those were the pillars of realizing that my thoughts actually do eventually create my reality. And so, what am I doing here to ensure the cause and effect loop of life is in my favor, right? So that in 3 months, what I'm doing today, the fruits are going to bear themselves. And so the biggest thing for me, Mario, has been forgiveness. I mean,
Um,
I can't tell you how many times I've written in my journal and then burned the piece of paper or ripped it up, right? Acceptance. How many times I say I am accepting of everything and I am accepting of this moment and just getting real and raw and just accepting and letting go. And it just takes look, it really does take confronting yourself in just a loving way no
yeah.
matter what you have done in the past, there is an opportunity for you to relieve that from yourself and get a vision big enough that gets you out of bed in the morning. And so that's where I've started.
Let's narrow in on this because you're speaking from my soul. I love this. Forgiveness. Like
Yeah.
when I first heard about the idea of forgiveness, I thought this is the biggest bullshit I've ever heard. It's like, why would I forgive somebody that stole from me or that wronged me or that it hurt me? It's like, I'm not the weak one. Why would I do that? So then
Right.
I got down that path and understood what forgiveness is. But I would love for you to elaborate. What was your journey with forgiveness and why do you think this is so important for entrepreneurs?
Yeah. And it was even less for me, it was even less about forgiving others. It was really the most about forgiving myself.
Hmm.
And dude, I mean, I was a rebel child growing up. I didn't do anything like catastrophically bad, but it's like you take the candy bar from the store and you're like, now you're beating yourself up over it for 6 years, right? And it's little things like that that compiled, or you got in a fight with your brother, or you said something you didn't mean to your mom, or you did something to your friend that you didn't mean to. And so I had to forgive myself the most over small things that I shouldn't have been sweating in the first place, but I was. And if I told other people, they were like, "What the heck? What is it? Are you kidding?" Because they would be like, "That is the smallest thing." So I think that's what entrepreneurs we magnify in
Oh,
our
yes.
heads our problems, and then we go and talk to someone about it and the things that we've done, and they're like, "What? That's how are you still thinking about that? That was 10 years ago." And it's
Uh-huh.
like, "Oh my God." And so that's what they're skeletons, but they're like so simple. Like
Yeah.
go and share those things. And my problem was that I didn't feel safe on top of it with sharing it. So now I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, my unique freaking fingerprint of the world has made it a very, very, I'm a perfect concoction to be uniquely doing what I'm currently doing because it's been my life. It's like
Mm.
the patterns and the problems and the challenges I face molded me, and I use them to mold me and leverage them.
Yeah.
And we beat ourselves up, especially as men. Woo, we are so hard on ourselves that we just shut down, numb, repress, suppress, and we don't show up powerfully, and then we're totally stuck,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. It's- there's something so on a similar way to you. I think I had a very similar pattern with this extreme uh, beating myself into thinking that I have to be absolutely perfect in order to be loved. And I
Mm,
didn't feel safe to open up about vulnerability because it would violate that image of perfection. Because
mm,
if I'm perfect, I don't have to have any sort of weaknesses or fears or insecurities. So just pretend that I don't have them and just step over them. And
mm,
so I've become a master at my own pattern recognition to find all of the loops and how I could avoid and overplay and sort of avoid. And I see that in other people too. And this whole thing that you describe of men are being so hard on themselves, I've went down this path, and what I've found is that people that beat themselves up, they do it primarily because they think that it leads to a positive outcome. They think if I beat myself up for taking the candy bar from the counter, I will learn and I will never do that again. Yet if you look at performance, it actually does the opposite. The more you beat yourself up, the more you are likely to repeat the kind of pattern that you want to avoid, and the more your performance is inhibited.
so spot on because we do not need to suffer in order to succeed. We do not need to have this negative self-talk. That's the problem is that most people are driven by their negative self-talk in order for them to take action. And oh my goodness, it locks you into the exact patterns that you want to actually dissolve in order for yourself to evolve and have the experience of life that you so much so would enjoy. And so it starts with the things that we're describing, and it's getting out of your own way. You got to
Yeah.
stop suffering in order to succeed.
Yeah. What are some of the, you described some of the practices and some of the books that you read, which are very, very valuable. What are some of the events or experiences that you have partaken in? Because I think you and I, we've done a lot of plant medicine.
Mhm.
And I'd love to hear from you sort of what were some of the core events that you have gone to that have really created massive change in your life?
Yeah, for me, it definitely started in just nature. Like if you're just a total beginner, nature, and then all I did was I read this book. I don't really recommend it, but I read this book, Urban Monk, and all I did was go and sit by the river and listen to the stream and let that wash all the negativity away. That's what I did. It's all going downstream, and it just started with the Headspace app and nature. That was it. Reading and then journaling. That's where it all started and began. It still it's a core pillar that's evolved today to breath work every single day. And obviously the pillars of like high performance of like exercise, nutrition, right? Hot tub, cold plunge, steam room, sauna. Those things are absolute must. The bonus experiences that I've had that have opened me up in many different ways. I think warrior retreats is absolutely a must by my friend by Brandon Collinsworth, where they take you on the journey down to Peru to work with Mother Aya. And that's a beautiful experience, absolutely. When you feel ready and called to do that, I highly recommend going and checking out Warrior Retreats on Instagram. Absolutely amazing. Brandon's a fantastic human being. And then
Mm.
it's just been a variety of different medicines between and journeys to really tap in and see what's available there for me. And you know, luckily I've used all of those experiences ultimately to come back to forgiveness, self-love, being lighter to myself, smiling more at myself, smiling more at my soul, coming back to kindness, giving hugs, having more compassion, right? It's not just about building the empires, right? And fucking taking down other people's castles. It's like, no. Nope. How do we go and help others build and serve? And that's all it's led to is I am so connected to every single person. And so everyone listening to this, and Mario, we're mirrors. We have so much in common. There's so much that we all share, and it's okay, and it's a safe place to share it. I think that's why those plant medicine journeys are so powerful, because if you get in the right container, you're around people that will really see you and hear you, even if in your darkest, darkest, darkest past stories and things that you hate the most about yourself, you will be just held in a very beautiful way.
Yeah. Yeah. This is so good, and it brings up a story. Like when I did quite a few ayahuascas over the past 7 years, and I took two of my best friends to South Africa because they really wanted to do it, a couple, and they've never engaged with the spiritual world in any
Mm.
capacity. This was the first time ever. We arrived there. It was a beautiful space set up out in nature, and we arrived there, and my friend, we, the moment we go into the maloka, which is like a big tent structure where the ceremony happens, everybody is sort of like a hippie. Everybody
Yeah.
has long hair, nobody is shaved, and I could just see him freeze. People come over to him, give him hugs, and he's just like totally awkward, just like,
Hmm.
oh God, everybody wants to
Yeah.
hug me, the spirit.
Yeah.
And 10 minutes later, he sits in the other tent, throwing up, shivering,
Mm.
fever, getting hot, and like feeling awful and being on the verge of canceling and saying, I'm out. And we
Mm.
told him, hey, just take a moment to rest and sleep for a bit. And we had some time for the ceremony. And he did. And luckily, he came back and he felt a lot better. And then he did the ceremony, and he had the biggest life transformation ever. And he came
Mm.
out of that just a bundle of love, hugging
Hmm.
everybody, sharing intimate conversations, and totally changing the trajectory of his life. And to this day, he said, Mario, that was the most profound experience I've had in my life. And because of it, I've changed so much. So much of my
Hmm.
life has positively shifted. And
Hmm.
what I'm curious to hear a little bit about is, where do you see the element of community in this conversation?
I would say that from my experience, it's really just it's choosing intentionally what community you'd like to go deep with and making sure you're surrounded by people that would let you sleep on their couch, right? If you were absolutely broke, or will really protect you and really stand for you and have your back, because there's all different people out in the world, there's all different intentions out in the world, and there's all different dualities out in the world. And so I believe that community is an absolute must, and it's paramount. It's proximity is power, right? We all know about just just someone sitting down and like giving you that heartfelt hug, or just like looking you in the eyes and saying, I see you, after you've just like thrown up, cried, sweated, rolled over. You're you look like a hot mess. And it's like, I
Ooh,
see you. And it's just honoring that part of you just because they see you're a human. Nothing makes you feel more alive than a community like that. Like you really feel alive. You're like, oh my God. Because we have so many experiences where, especially in the US, there's cliques, there's bullying, there's bougie, there's like you don't have the cool clothes, you don't have the cool car. There is
yeah,
absolutely, in the right community, there's none of that. It's not about materialism. It's not about even what you do or how much money you have. It's about who you're being in the community, and what value you bring to the community is most definitely your presence with
yeah,
others.
yeah. That's such a beautiful reflection of what's really important in life and what truly matters. And
Yeah.
I can attest to that because when I first came into these communities, my first instinct was like, oh, just tell everybody how much of a big shot you are, traveling all over the world, what you've experienced. And, I started a little bit with that, and I noticed there was just like nothing coming back. And I felt a sense of like, hey, what do you mean? I'm Mario. Come on, man. And I
Yeah.
noticed very quickly that that was very shallow, that was there was nothing to grasp there.
Yep.
And then I learned to really center myself around service, to center myself
Mm,
around being a caring, genuine, good-hearted human being, no matter where you are, especially with people that don't see all of your accolades and accomplishments. And now bringing that into the business, right? One of the
yep.
things that I teach in my business is the opposite of the ABC culture, that always be closing, and
Mm,
instead ABS, always be serving. One of my
yeah.
coaches, shout out to William Griffin, taught me that, and now I'm embracing that fully and just genuinely show up anywhere and serve.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if I get something out of it or not. The act of service in itself is so fulfilling, and that fuels my entire business on any given basis.
Yeah, it's focusing on the process, not the outcome in that, and also as well. It's like not it's focusing on planting the right seeds. It's focusing on, you know, nourishing that seed. It's focusing on the fruits of the labor are going to come later, right? When it comes in that instance. And so yeah, surrounding yourself with a culture of people who just, they don't care about the accolades. They're there to like that. A lot of the accolades and materialism and a lot of the state of the world is in that place of desire.
Yeah.
And so that's their frequency that they're operating at, is their desire for more, desire to be seen, desire for their ego to be spotlighted. And because we always focus so much on what we want or what we don't have. And
Yeah.
so instead of what we already currently have and who we are. And so many people opt and desire, like if you just come back to Think and Grow Rich and just any type of manifestation, it's like it's the starting point, but that is the exact thing that's going to hold you back if you
Mm.
do not let it go and accept that you already are that person. That's what
Mm.
you got to be. I am, people are, life is. You got to accept, you got to forgive, you got to come back into yourself so you can show up powerfully as if, acting as if, and not in an egoic way, just acting as if, just comfortably with certainty that you know your worth and you are worthy regardless of what you have or you don't have. And
Yeah.
so it's shifting out of desire. That's just a
Yeah.
decision that you can make, essentially. You
Yeah.
can decide no more desire.
Yeah. Yeah. It becomes a place of normality almost. It's
Yeah,
like you're a man. You don't need to make a big fact about a big thing about the
right.
fact that you're a man. Yep, that's who I am, right? So everything you're manifesting around knowing I am a man or I
Yep.
am Brian. And so when that
Mm-hmm.
becomes part of your regular thinking, it just happens effortlessly. It just happens with
Absolutely.
ease, where you don't have to force things. And you talked about process just now, and obviously that's one of your master areas. And I would love to talk a little bit about the process. And there's one thing that I learned from you, because this is for those of you that don't know, this is how Brian and I connected. I was part of his coaching program, part of Leaders Create Leaders, a community that he created with Gerard Adams. And one of the things that Brian taught me in there was to work in your zone of genius. And I would love for you to elaborate a little bit on that. What is the zone of genius, and how
Mm.
can entrepreneurs move into that?
Yeah. I think that it's it's what zone of genius to me is like what I'm most naturally curious about
Mm-hmm.
and that I can spend all day learning about and studying and then executing. And so that's what zone of genius is to me. And it's funny. I would suggest taking this quick personality test. It's by Martin Seligman, the founder of positive psychology. It's called Values in Action Character Strengths Survey. I think it's just VIA, and you just type it into Google, Values in Action Character Strength Survey, and it's a bunch of questions, but it'll tell you your how you take action based on your values, right? And
Mm.
so and these are values of like kindness or learning or spirituality or beauty and excellence or love there's 36 values that he's like distilled down. And when I took that test, what I realized is that my number one value is beauty and excellence. And what that means is that
Well,
I love people that are masters of their craft, great tennis players, great artists, great painters, great golfers, great businessmen and women. Like, I love people that have spent that have invested years of their time and life and energy that have went through the dark times in order to learn the skills, right? They might have been, they're not all prodigies. People will spend 10,000 hours like it takes to become a master to learn a skill. And that is my number one value that I'm driven by. And so when it comes to the zone of genius, I would say, what would you could spend 10,000 hours on? That's your zone of genius. What would you go and do there? And so for you're like the mindset and the leadership and the coaching. That's what I would consider your zone of genius. I'm taking it more of a meta approach here rather than saying, hey, your zone of genius isn't responding to emails or building a
Mm.
funnel, right? Like obviously you can delegate that. And what is it that you would be like, oh, I'm going to go and dedicate my life because I am wildly obsessed and most interested about learning this. And I know I won't ever get burnt out about learning this stuff on a daily basis.
Yeah.
That's how I consider it.
I like that one. And that's definitely what I learned from you. And I remember you once gave me this tool called the delegation matrix, which really
Yeah.
made a big difference because it required me to take inventory over where my time is currently going. And I was clearly doing a lot of things that I wasn't supposed to be doing according to this idea of the zone of genius. And
Yeah.
my fear was like, yeah, but if I take away my time from that, I'm going to have to spend a lot of money and time and energy to hire somebody or to potentially bring on some sort of an agency to do this for me. And there was all this fear that I had, which is why I didn't do it for the longest time. Now,
Mm-hmm.
how you obviously run a company for virtual assistants, and from
I
what
mean,
I understand,
yeah.
yeah,
And on that point, real quick, like just the delegation matrix, it's like you're, and talking about the zone of genius, if I may, just for one moment, is like you have,
please.
you have when you're delegating and when you're doing these things, it's like taking that time audit is so key, right? Once we know, hey, I want to become a master at this or I'm obsessed about this, like that's your vision. You see yourself becoming that. You do all the shadow work to become that individual. Okay, let's talk about the actual execution, right? The delegation, in my mind, one, we know it's factually studied that your income level is directly associated to your ability to delegate. And so people who are the
Mm,
best at delegating will make more money than people that do not delegate. That's facts. You can just go look at all the
why?
Harvard Review studies,
Why?
and
Can you elaborate?
well, you can say because they can get they. I mean, you just look at you can take Elon Musk or you can look at Jeff Bezos. You can look at the richest people in the world. A lot of them have delegated and built their vision and their strategy into other people to come and support them. And so even if it's delegating as small as someone helping you come clean your home, that'll free up more time and mental bandwidth and capacity because we all have the same time. It's just choosing how we use that time. And so people who delegate have more time even if it's the small things, because now they have more time to, even if you're a solo entrepreneur, making better investments, read better books, get ahead, right? And so then you can go all in because you're not thinking about anything else than what you want to master. So that's the power
Mm.
of delegation. And yeah, there's two types of it. There's delegation of tasks and there's delegation of thinking, right? What I've learned from the virtual assistants company is that that's a delegation of tasks company, right? Not a delegation of thinking. Two different schools of thought. Delegation of thinking is like strategy, your offers, how are you building an audience, right? Making making decisions that eliminate thousands of other decisions, right? It's so funny that people think about like, oh, I could just do this. It takes me 10 minutes and I could do it faster than everybody else. Why am I going to go pay any money? And I'm like, one, your income's directly associated to your ability to delegate. Two, why don't you just make one decision and never do this again? Create one training video. Who cares how long it takes that person to do it? You don't have to think about it anymore. Now you can go think about the what gets paid the big bucks, which is thinking, strategy, vision, empowerment, becoming a better skill stacking. And so that's where people get tied up. And the first step is to just do what we said. Like we just write it all down, you know. What you're going to come to find, that's the most fascinating thing that I discovered in the last 6 months, is that when you're running a $1 million plus company, there's about 250 things that need to be done on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis in order to keep the business running.
Wow.
250 responsibilities that need to be executed. And that is a fascinating thing for me to discover because I have tried to solve this problem that I've been obsessed about, which is system staffing and software. How do I
Yeah.
solve that? And I had to do a total assessment. And then you have 100 processes that run a $1 million plus company. That is like not being talked about enough right now in the space because everyone's
Mm.
saying like, hey, you can just go and do X, Y, Z, ABC, build one funnel and you're rich. And I am like, absolutely not. This is a huge undertaking of what you're about to go on. Now, luckily, if you're listening to this podcast, you know Mario and I, and we've simplified it. And so it's a lot easier because we've already went through the trenches and spent the millions of dollars to get punched in the face and get back up every single day to figure out how to solve this problem. And so I know I kind of just ranted a little bit, but thank you for respecting that and guys for listening. I know I'm just ranting on here. I have great intentions.
This is
But back to
great.
delegation, my friend. Yeah,
This is
tell me.
this is really good. And I want to take a quick pause because what you said is so important to even reflect upon. Because naturally, what you said, that's why I asked you to elaborate. Why is it that the wealthiest people are the ones that delegate the most? For most of us, like, duh, of course, but very few of us actually do it. It took me
Yeah,
forever to get myself to do it. And the thing that stopped me, and I would love for you to hear your perspective on what you see it with entrepreneurs, is that sense of giving up control. I was like,
yeah,
that Canva design, I'd rather do it. That
yeah,
email, I'd rather reach out. And it was all of that holding on. I want it my way, and if it's not my way, it's the highway. And so
yeah,
I just stayed stuck at the level that was. And now I'm delegating anything that I can. I'm learning more and more, and
yeah.
delegating even more, and it's fun. And I'm letting go. But do you
It's
see
great
that as
because
well? And
oh my God, it's a thing. It's actually almost part of the reason why I transitioned the rebrand of my company because I realized that I have I don't have enough mindset coaching and delegation coaching and leadership coaching for people to even step into that as leaders to be able to delegate. So it looks like I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm like, oh no, your patterns of perfectionism, your karma, your negative self-talk. I mean, there's a study done, Mario, that for every one bad thing you say in a setting of a company to an employee, it takes the equivalent of 10 positive reinforcements to rebound from that one negative thing. And so imagine at scale, my company gets about 8,000 tasks delegated per month, right, to it. Now imagine working with individuals who would say, "Why is it done that way?" with attitude. And I'm like, "Whoa, do you know how much that's going to take energetically for that person to just rebound?" And so
damn.
delegation is it's a challenge in itself inside of your company because what you're doing is it's a people opportunity. And if you haven't done the work in compassion and empathy or training, right, what happens is this is what happens. There's a great book called Never Boss. Probably my favorite book right now in business. Period. Never Boss by Kevin Crenshaw. You get it on Amazon. It's like $5 or something, maybe 10. It teaches you there's 4 levels of leadership, and this applies to delegation. The bottom level is taking over, right, to create stability, right. The next one is I think take over, train, teach, coach, support. Yeah. So take over, then it's train. No, take over, then teach, then train, then coach, then support. And so what I mean by that is you take over to build your company, and what happens is that a lot of people actually don't even know what they're building. So one of the biggest mistakes you can make when you're delegating, especially when it's a company, is you're delegating what you don't know. So you get screwed. This is how Facebook ad agencies and people could take advantage of you because now they're charging you a big retainer fee, right? Because you're delegating what you don't know. That's how you get basically highway robbery. Next is you then need to know how to teach and train, and then you need to know how to coach, and then you need to know how to support. And so what ends up happening is that people hear zone of genius. They're like, I can delegate. And then they just abdicate. And what that means is, go and do this for me. No, I mean, unless it's literally cleaning a pool, it's not going to work unless you're paying big dollars. Like most people don't have like the New York Yankees budget to build a team, right? Most people don't. So now you got to go through the leadership steps. And then what ends up happening, guys, is like, Mario, is people want to support when they need to be taking over, and they're taking over when they should be supporting. And holy crap, it
Mm.
creates an absolute nightmare because now team members are diminished. They're like, why do you keep taking this back from me? Let me do it. I can do it, you know? And they want to grow and they want to be empowered. But now you're taking over because you have your perfectionist, your control, your passive aggressiveness. You don't know how to lead. You don't know how to communicate. And you haven't put in the time and energy to master teams and leadership. And so it's why I have a company of 65 and why people that I work with barely can have a company of one. I've had clients. I'll remove the names. I've had clients where I've had 25 people on my team that did not want to work with that client. 25 people say, no, I am not working with that client. I've had that happen twice, maybe 3 times. Absolutely not. The whole company is like, I'm not working for that person. And then they come to me like, why isn't things good? I'm like, listen, we cannot move on together. We cannot work together. I got to protect my culture. I got to create safety. And what is not safe is I'm not responsible for your financial instability, your passive aggressiveness, you're a
Mm.
perfectionist, and you being very, very mean to your team. Regardless of who they are, they're human beings. We're not full AI yet. Like, chill out. And so that's a big growth opportunity for many people is mastering. That's why we've talked about it in this order on this podcast today, is your identity. You got to work on yourself first, because I'm telling you, your company and your team are going to absolutely reflect you. It's 100% going to happen. So if you're a complete hot mess, don't do anything until you're a little bit better. Work with Mario. Get your stuff dialed. Like, that needs to happen first before you move on to the company setting. And so I have seen it all, my friend. I've worked with 1,000+ clients, and I've seen it all. And it's driven me to create an ultimate solution, and I'm grateful for it all. But yeah, so I know that's important.
Man, this is thank you. Finally, somebody who just, I'm gonna have this episode listen to a few of my clients because they
Yeah,
have bigger companies. And I am there consistently showing up saying you need to go deeper. You need to go deeper. I don't have the time. I think this is enough. It's like, but
yeah,
then the same problems keep showing up, and you've just
yeah,
highlighted it perfectly. And I've seen in my own journey. That's why I've done it the other way around. I first went into business, a business career. I crashed. It didn't work out, and then I went down this inner work game, and I did
yeah,
over a decade of inner work and shadow work and whatever name you want to give that. And now I'm seeing it in my business how effortless things are moving forward. I'm not in a rush. I never have this sort of idea that I'm
yeah,
behind on my goals. Oh, I need to. Sometimes I have urges, but small, and I can manage
yeah,
that. And it's like a
absolutely.
journey I truly enjoy, and the rewards are coming, and the growth is very manageable. And I have people that come to me, oh, but you should be charging 100K right now, and I'm like, you know what? I don't. My nervous system isn't there, and I'm
No,
okay with that. And I'm
yeah,
okay with doing growth like that. I'm not in a hurry. Where
yeah.
where where do you want me to go? I don't need to be
Yeah,
the
it's
next
just
Tony Robbins.
patient. It's patient urgency. It's just patience, and then you're moving with urgency. You're moving with precision. You're trying to make one decision that eliminates 1,000 others, and and yeah, it's like I, I'm not responsible. I've coming back full circle with this is like the whole thing of being important enough, right? And making sure that I matter. Like, that's led to me doing things like savior and people pleasing in order to fill that up. It's like that's why dude, there's been I'm almost positive since I was for the last 6 years, I don't think there was a month where I wasn't building like 30 different companies at one time.
Oh,
And so I've had I've had more experience than than probably all of my clients combined thinking about this problem. And so I'm like, it's just because I was crazy. I was literally like, I need to feel important. I matter. Let me show you. I would say yes to everything. And now
Yeah.
I'm like, absolutely not. I'm not responsible for your karma. I'm also not responsible for your patterns. I'm not responsible for your projections. And that's why it's like working with quality individuals. And so when you work with us, anyone that's listening to us, it's just compassion, it's culture, it's clarity, it's patience. There's no silver bullets. We're a community that can provide clarity and very much so support you on
Yeah.
up leveling.
Yeah. And I can be a testament to that. Brian, he wouldn't be on my podcast if that wasn't true. I still use some of the things that he taught me today. I still have some of the people that he referred me to work with today. I highly recommend checking out. As we come to the end of this podcast, Brian, please tell us what's the best way to connect with you, and if somebody is interested in tapping into that genius and helping them scale their business with a lot more ease, what's the best way to find that?
Yeah, I would say it's any one of my social profiles. Primarily Instagram is where I hang out most. At Brian Donovan underscore underscore on Instagram. And so, and then my link in my bio, there's a free community that you can join by the time this is released, as well as some different tiers and which way we can work together, and just opportunities to, yeah, go deeper. I mean, if you're interested in learning more, yeah, check that out. I have spent my whole life trying to solve this problem, and I feel like I have solved it enough finally. And it's taken 7 years every single day
Yeah.
thinking about how the heck do I solve this thing? And so, yeah, man, it's a beautiful thing. Very grateful. This was fantastic, dude. I mean, I think this is just great. I know we might have to do a part two, or some other clips or
Um,
some stuff or something with the coaching clients that you have, because this is just fun.
I'm very open for that, my friend. Brian, you've been an absolute beast in what you shared. You're a gentle human being centered, a heart centered leader. I appreciate you. I see you. Thank you for being on the show, and thank you for listening. You are a cornerstone of this work that I get to do in the world. With that, I am complete, and I will see you on the next episode.